Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood, and we have a very special guest on the show. So I want to introduce you to one of you. He's a political vigilante, and he reached out to me as someone who has a job but is having a hard time finding housing and is kind of living on the streets, and offered to be basically like my journalist on the street, so to speak. So I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Adam Gray to the show. Adam, how are you?
I'm good. I'm actually doing pretty well. Today's my day off, and I'm really grateful for you having me here and being able to reach so many people. With all the fucked up shit in the world, there's some things that have got to be told, and I never expected to be this guy, and here I am. I'm living in my car.
Okay, so Adam, why don't you, because you and I talked a little bit about it before recording. You sent me a couple emails, but why don't you tell everybody, just walk us through, sort of, you went to school, you got a job, you're this and that, and why are you now? What circumstances are making it so you're living in your car?
Okay, I'll try to keep it brief, but I come from a strictly blue-collar family. From Ohio, both sides family, truck drivers, mechanics, those are my people. Mm-hmm. My grandparents and their parents were coal miners and railroad people, and my single mom did a great job of raising me with a work ethic that I find very few people want to keep pace with, and I take a lot of pride in anything that I do. I got my first job when I was 12 years old, peeling potatoes at a delicatessen for $3 an hour after school. I was a paid writer at the age of 17. I was publishing my own fanzine. If you remember fanzines, yes. Back in the 80s, we used to put stamps on pieces of paper and wait, for stuff to go through. Went through most of high school, tricked my way into college without graduating high school, and did that for about 3 years. Ran out of money. It was crazy expensive. And then started my own business. I started a tattoo studio with a $500 loan, and before I knew it, I was pulling in $250,000 in cash a year. So I'm no slouch, and I'm not bragging. I enjoy the satisfaction of working hard and giving my best. And fast forward to about 11 years ago, one of my oldest friends from art school said, "Hey, I know you're not happy where you're at, and things are kind of falling apart for you in the Midwest for a lot of things, bad confluence of events." So I put it all in a trailer, and I showed up here, and he goes, "Well, I actually don't have any work for you." And I went,
So you gave up the pretty decent paying tattoo parlor gig to come to California, and then there was no work?
There's a big gap in between there. Okay. I was in Michigan for a while working in a warehouse. There's a lot. But so I closed my studio at the end of the 90s. And bounced around a lot. I went to LA for 4 years because I've been a lifelong student of and hardcore film fan, and just wanted to start doing some indie films and see what happens. I wasn't deluding myself into thinking I'd step off the bus and be a star or anything like that. I wanted to work my way up. I wanted to meet people, and it just didn't work out. I did a lot of projects that were fun. But you kind of have that LA thing where you do 6 weeks of night shoots with someone and you can't get a call back.
Right.
So it's Hollywood, and that, so bounced around a lot, back and forth to the Midwest. And 11 years ago, a friend said, "Hey, I'll help you out, whatever. Construction's booming." He's doing carpentry, and that was when the condo thing was really full steam. So sometimes he'd be putting together 20 units with a team of his guys or whatever, and I show up and he's like, "Oh, sorry." And I'm like, what the fuck did you just do to my life? Like, really?
Mm-hmm.
They let me stay there for about a month. Turned out his wife is nuts, and she wanted me out. She would tell him, get him out of here. And then she would come to me and give a hug. It's okay. You'll find more work. Like, all right, bye. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, the first regular job that I applied for was with an event company. And that is the company that I am still with now. I'm going into my 12th year with this company. It starts off as overhire. It's event based. So there's no regular hours. There's no guarantee that you're going to make X amount of money every week. There's nothing steady about it. It's feast or famine. It just is based on how many clients book events with them.
Right.
And when you work your ass off 18 hours a day. I worked a 27-hour shift outside one time after 4 weeks of setup.
Right.
It's hard on your body, and it's not for everybody. And it started to take a toll on me. My hair was not always gray, but that sort of was a good primer for learning how to sleep in your car and catch a power nap, before you have to drive somewhere else.
So even in the event world, which I kind of know a little bit. I've been freelance most of my life. I understand, and I've produced some live events, so I know it's a lot of freelance people that I'm hiring. That's that world. But so you're saying for the last basically 11, 12 years, you've been making enough steady money to live on, to live in an apartment and all that stuff, and pay your bills and get by, correct?
Yeah, and obviously nothing extravagant. I didn't know a lot of people when I first moved here, and managed to find, some reasonably safe and reasonably nice, one-bedroom things, and I had a really great studio in Oakland's Chinatown that was just great. But even with all the freelance I was doing outside of the company, I was like always a little bit short at the end of every year. It was like $1,000 here. It's like, I didn't expect my car to break down, and
Right.
credit card. The next year, I didn't expect the cat to get sick, but I love my cat, so there's another grand.
And then do you have health insurance? Does this company provide health insurance?
I did not until California or San Francisco made it mandatory. Was that federal that they made it mandatory?
That's the Affordable Care Act, I believe, is that.
I think California might have had a jump on that, but it's irrelevant. So for, I don't know, 6, 7 years, I did not have any form of health insurance at all. Mm-hmm. And then the third year, I didn't know I'd have to have this tooth rebuilt. You know what I mean? So it's like all out of pocket. And when you don't have it in your pocket, it goes on another goddamn credit card. And luckily, because I had worked so hard and so consistently for decades before that, I built up a pretty good credit rating. I don't know exactly, 720, something like that. But I worked really hard to keep that, and I worked really hard not to apply for credit cards. The only credit card I had from my 20s until maybe 35 was an American Express, a classic one where you paid it off at the end of every month.
Right.
So I was reasonably financially responsible, but always just a little bit short at the end of every year. And the debt keeps building and building, no matter how cheap you live, no matter how much ramen you eat, and doing events in different locations, all over. We're in San Francisco. We would take trips down to Carmel sometimes, we'd go that far. We do a lot of work up in Napa with the wineries. Not that many of them are going to be left in a week or two here. But it was a lot of driving, a lot of wear and tear on my car. I had a 2004 Honda, about 220,000 miles on it, and I just could not keep paying to patch it together anymore. Right before that happened, my ex came down very suddenly with a genetic disorder, a connective tissue disorder, that her father also has, and it just showed up suddenly. She had built her own very successful business as a costume designer, top of her field for the specialty that she was in, and she lost the use of her hands. She couldn't sew. She couldn't hold a plate. She couldn't do dishes. And it was fast, like when it came on. She was on the front steps and turned too quickly and destroyed her ankle, broke a bone, tendon severed, ligaments ripped. And she had already been on Medi-Cal, which is a little bit different than Medicaid. It's a little more limited, and it is a insane bureaucracy, first of all. It's all paid for, but someone has to take care of her. That would mean me covering her half of things. That would mean me, purchasing whatever it is. I would make sure that, she had what she needed while I was gone 18 hours a day and commuting 30 hours each way. And, it's the weirdest, most horrible feeling to not be able to take care of a person that you love. We were together for 5 years, I think, something like that. And that's when it all started unraveling. That's when my mind started unraveling, and I had spent pretty much everything I could to keep her going. Medi-Cal had her walking on this shattered ankle for 11 months before they performed the surgery. That's how much paperwork and bullshit goes on. And it's devastating, to have to hold her hand through that and do, I'd have to take a day off and take her to God knows how many doctors, how many times, take her to surgery and then stay at home for 2 weeks because she couldn't get up. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't, I'm not trying to be, none of this is woe is me. Explaining, not complaining. This is life. This is shit that happens, But that was like, oh shit, now I'm really, really out of money. What ended up happening is that she moved up to Santa Rosa to be closer to her parents.
Right.
And they were taking care of her as best they could. And that was the end of our relationship, really. So I've never been able to quite cover the real necessities, even though I'm putting year after year into this job, and I'm just not quite making it, living reasonably lower class, working class, we're not driving new cars, and we're not, going out to dinner, and that's normal. I'm not bitter about that. But so now I have to find a roommate, and then my car finally dies, coming all the way around to that. This year, my car finally collapsed in 2004, and I have to have a vehicle. It's not quite as bad as it is in LA, but here you really do, especially if you're traveling around for work.
Right, because an event planner, you got to go here, you got to go there. There's an event 20, 30 miles away. There's one 50 miles away, I'm assuming, right? Like that's... Yeah.
Some days, we have busy seasons on and off, and some days we go between 2 and 3 different venues in a row in one day.
Right, so you're putting 50 to 100 miles a day on your car, I would imagine.
Easily. So add up the gas, add up the wear and tear, add up the insurance and the tolls.
And the fact that public transportation can't get you there in a lot of... Sometimes it could, but more than likely not. And maybe if you're the type of event planner where you might have to bring some of the gear or whatever.
Yeah, tools. I'm more of a worker in those situations. Similar to a stagehand, but it's a different flavor. Okay, a lot of lighting work. Okay, not just that, but tools and a bag lunch, and you gotta. San Francisco's public transportation sucks. It always has. This BART system thing. Oh man, it is the cutting edge of technology for the 1970s. I tell you what, it doesn't even run 24 hours.
Right.
They just they have cloth seats for 40 years. Cloth seats. People sleeping, shitting, pissing, vomiting.
Right.
God knows what on the seats. And I've seen too much. They just reupholstered the seats in these 40-year-old trains, and it doesn't run past 12:30 at night. Guess when events happen?
Yeah. Sure, you're especially you're lighting, you're setting up dance floors and parties and that go
Exactly.
to weddings, whatever, that get done at 1, 2 in the morning. Yeah, so public transportation isn't an option. So you have to spend money on a car. You've dropped all that money on your ex-girlfriend's health issue and just other things you've had to do, just life, your
Yeah,
own
life happens.
life
We got
happens.
burglarized. We had to replace things. The real life happens. Um, so when I replaced the car this year, I bought a 2008, and I found kind of a unicorn. It was low mileage. It's an Element, so it's basically designed as a mini camper, multi-use thing. There's no carpet in here, which is the greatest thing I've ever experienced in my life. You can put 5 giant dogs in the back of it, and you can go camping in it and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not only useful for work, but it's also very suitable for my situation right now.
So
And
how
when
did
I
you?
bought that car, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so how then did you lose your apartment that you were living in and now you're living in your car and you're still working full time?
Oh yeah. Um, um, I got a Craigslist roommate. She turned out to be pretty cool. Younger woman working in biotech, lab technician type of thing. Um, and she covered half the rent, just as my ex was doing when things were good. Um, and suddenly she just fucked out on me. She gave me, I don't know, 2.5 weeks notice and said, "Oh, just take everything out of the deposit." I'm like, that's not how it works. First of all, my financial situation. I've been honest with her and saying there's a reason I need a roommate, right? So you doing this to me is screwing me. And that was right after I bought the car.
Mm-hmm.
And it took 4 hours to finance this used car on a lot. 4 hours. I put $300 from this credit card. That was the end of it. I put $600 from this. I laundered money through my PayPal account. I bounced it to my parents, and they sent me cash back, like through PayPal credit. Okay, I mean that was the end of it. And then my roommate fucks out, and I'm like, okay, it's over. Like I can't hold this together anymore. And that realization was like, time to start planning, trying to figure out what's the last day I could possibly stay here till. And thank God I bought this car, because it's going to run for a while and it's big enough to sleep in. And then another weird thing happened. I actually quit my job working in the field right before that because I'd had too many close calls. I woke up 6 a.m. doing 70 miles an hour on the 101, heading towards the divider. That was the 3rd time in a year. I'm exhausted. My body is wrecked. You go that long without regular sleep, without regular food. It ages you so fast. And this is non-union, by the way.
Right.
So we're not getting a competitive wage. We're getting a living wage, but not a competitive wage. And I fell apart. I texted my manager. This is 3 days before the end of the season. This is like right before Christmas when it all shuts down for a couple of weeks. I texted my manager, I have to pull off the road right now. I just woke up on the freeway, and I took a power nap and woke up, and I just melted. I was shaking and crying, and at that point, it's like, I would rather live in my car than die in it. So all of these things sort of happen 1 month to the next, to the next, to the next. Sorry if I'm not being too chronological, but yeah, I knew suddenly when she left, my roommate, that I had to get a plan together real fast. I managed to come back to the same company and negotiate for a warehouse position,
Mm-hmm.
so that I wouldn't have to be out in the field under that kind of strain. And I took a little bit of a pay cut, but I actually ended up making more money because I wasn't driving all over fucking California all the time at all hours of the night.
Spending the
Right?
gas money and everything else and having to pay for lunches and all this. Yeah.
Yeah. But it turned out, it's just not enough. Having a full 40 a week is like, well, at least I can make a budget now, whatever. But now I'm, commuting 30 hours each way from where I was forced out to live. I lived in Oakland and a couple places. The last warehouse that my girlfriend and I lived in was in a shitty industrial, nasty place under the freeway next to the BART tracks between the railroad tracks and then a construction yard on the other side. I mean, this is polluted and toxic, okay? Unfinished floors, no heat. They raised the rent overnight from $1,600 to $2,700 on us.
Jesus.
So that's when we moved way further north into a little town called Crockett. We moved up to the next bridge, the last exit before the next toll bridge, which is the Carquinez Bridge. And so I had regular hours and things were okay, but now I'm commuting 2 hours each way back and forth from there to San Francisco. And again, I'm getting nonlinear, but there's a lot. There's a lot to this. So for 5 weeks now.
Let me just interject real quick, just for the viewers to understand here. San Francisco has some of the, or the Bay Area rather, has some of the highest rents. And this is not the first time I've heard this catastrophic leap in rents. This is also happening in Los Angeles where I live. I mean,
I've heard.
I have rent control, and if I didn't have rent control, units in my building would cost me $700-800 more a month. If this exact same layout of where I'm living in my building, if I were to try to move into it today, would be a good $700-800 more than what I'm paying. So I just to let people know, and I'm sure people watching this can have maybe not as extreme, but similar stories in whatever city you're living in, because I keep hearing this all over the place. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think it's not that it's underreported in San Francisco and the Bay Area. We're victims of the Valley's success. It is shocking to me how much I have to pay for coffee or whatever. And
no, it's the tech jobs. I've heard it's Silicon Valley, all these tech jobs, people are making all these money. Entry-level positions are like 60, 70 grand a year. People are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, so they'll pay it. So they just jack up the rents on everybody. Like my cousin who grew up in San Francisco, he lived in the city. He goes, Graham, San Francisco's gone. The heart of San Francisco, everyone had to move out because it's too expensive now.
Yeah. The Mission, I think, is the last area that they're really trying to whitewash. And there were 20 or 30 fires in 1 year, I think. Arson, fires, to get rid of good, cool people, artists, everyone, that make diversity, to get rid of minorities, to get rid of working people. And, they move in and they complain about the noise at night. I'm like, did you not know what the Mission was when you bought this fucking thing? Yeah. There are stories of some of these techies, they are buying units in San Francisco just for the weekend. They only go there 1 day a week, or maybe they don't go there at all. They have so much goddamn money to blow that they'll just buy a place that someone else could desperately needs to live in, and it's not underreported. It's underestimated. Like the numbers are that you hear, or you might hear on the mainstream media. No way, man. It is so much worse, and it has been steadier and steadier. And that's what the government wants. That's what the government of San Francisco and probably all of California, but the whole area. Because if it wasn't what they didn't want, they would do something about it. Right. They haven't put any money into fixing public transportation here. They haven't done anything for regular people. All they do is incrementally court more money from more tech. So, I mean, it's obvious. If you spend any time here at all, it's so obvious that's how it's rigged. That's what they want, So now you're basically,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but so basically you're working full time in this warehouse and you have to live in your car because it's too expensive.
That's right. My place of business is half a block that way. So here's a weird thing. About a year and a half ago, when I took this new position, um, I couldn't handle the traffic anymore. I just couldn't. This is when I'm commuting 30 miles each way, which in LA or San Francisco, 30 miles, this is 2 hours if you're lucky. You're just riding the brake both ways the whole time. You're not getting anywhere. You're just burning gas. So I had enough. I couldn't take it. So what I started doing was waiting until rush hour was over, most of it, right? I just sit there and check the map every once in a while. I'm like, okay, if it gets down to under an hour, I'll drive home. Could not take the stress. Road rage, everything,
Right.
And so I would do a little work on my laptop, or I would noodle around with some artwork or whatever, or take a nap, something like that, and just wait for the traffic. So that's how much more time out of my day that I'm losing. Really, I can't be truly productive, sitting in the car or whatever. So I started filming what was going on. I started taping stuff, first with just my cell phone, and then I got a GoPro, and I just started studying the neighborhood around here. We're in a very industrial area, a lot of warehouses, a lot of.
So then you've been putting all these videos up there, just showing what's happening on. You have your own YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah, I've accumulated so much more. I do have a channel.
What's it called?
Accumulating hours and hours of footage. The channel is called How Soon Is Now. I don't have enough subscribers yet to get a custom URL, but you can get there. You can link right through there at atomgray.net, ATOMGRAY, and that'll send you to my channel. But the weird thing is I'm watching all of this, and I'm watching the little groups, and I'm watching what's happening on the streets, studying it, never thinking that I would be in the middle of it. And that's where I landed. And thank God that I had done that research, because I'm on a safe street. I know where to be, where not to be. I have filmed some crazy shit. There's a municipal yard 4 or 5 blocks over here, where the city keeps their street sweepers, their maintenance trucks and all that thing. Ironically, they all have yellow vests on. Okay, so I would get out of work, basically working 9 to 5, and you see this flood of yellow vest workers, hard hats and all that stuff, carrying their toolboxes, carrying their lunch bags and all that stuff, and getting into broken down campers and getting into cars and living in them. City workers, I'm not even kidding, dozens and dozens of them. And I filmed it. I have it. It's a fact. I'm not making this shit up. They're making Union City money, and they're living in vans they have to push on street sweeping day. I'm not kidding.
So if people go to atomgray.com and
.net.
.net. Okay, atomgray.net. I'm
Yeah.
going to put that link in the show notes, ATOMGRAY.net. They're going to get a link to your YouTube where they can see this footage of like city workers living in their cars.
I'm just starting to pare down all the stuff that I have. I've done a few videos about work and being on the street and the traffic and all that sort of thing, but apparently this is where the universe wants me to be, and that's going to be my focus on building up that channel. This needs to be seen.
Yes.
People need to see this. Oakland's worse. Oakland is so much worse. They have encampments of 200 or 300 people concentrated, connected in shanty towns. Think about that for a second. You don't have those large encampments here because San Francisco being so much more dense. So they find little pockets where they can stay for a while, and they build a little community. They all know each other. They all park their, busted shit or build their tents, nearby each other. And that's home. And what's coming up now is the last thing I want to add. That's their home. They're not homeless. Okay? I'm not homeless. This is my home. I'm not ashamed to be here. I like it. I feel lucky. I'm luckier than most. My car runs. I have a job. You know what I mean? I can go buy junk food at the corner store because I'm in a food desert. This is industrial. There's no good food to eat. There's nothing. There's the term coming up called unhoused. And I think that we should all make an effort to use that word, use that terminology, because if you start thinking about it, that's what it is. They've been unhoused. We are unhoused.
Right.
We make homes. Home is what you make of it.
Right.
Okay. Homelessness comes from Reagan. I was in New York in the 80s. I watched it explode. And when you hear the word homeless or it's used, immediately in your mind, you're programmed to think of a bum, a junkie in a doorway laying in his own filth, right? It happens to me still when I hear that word. We're unhoused. That's what's happening. When they go in and they bulldoze these communities and the cops come down and whatever, those are their homes.
Right. Well, Adam, I really appreciate you sharing this with us, and we're going to talk to you more. You know, one of the things I say about this show is I say, everybody out there, you're all political vigilantes. You know, I'm just one guy in my apartment. I don't have a news team and this, that, and the other thing. So everyone out there, you're all political vigilantes reporting to me so that I can put it out to a bigger audience about what's really going on. And Adam, that's what you're doing. So I applaud you for doing this and reaching out and contacting me, and you know, you're you even donated to my Patreon, which I told you don't have to do, dude. If you don't want to, you know, you don't have to do that, like, for real. And I
appreciate it.
And everybody watching, please, you know, go to adamgray.com and see his videos and spread them out there and tell people this. When people on social media think that, you know, the homeless are just, you know, schizophrenic drug addicts or whatever, which there is some of that, obviously, and those people need to be taken care of. This, the richest country in the history of the world, like, this is inexcusable. This is inexcusable.
Like Jimmy keeps repeating, 43% of homeless Americans have jobs.
Have jobs.
And the first person that I repeated that statistic to, a friend at work, said, that sounds really low.
Yeah.
And in San Francisco, I bet that's really low. Honestly, I bet it's 60, 70%.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, that's nationwide. I'm sure it's worse in areas like San Francisco where the rents are through the roof. Like,
yeah.
I mean, well, so Adam, thank you so much for taking time to be with us and to share your stories. We're going to have Adam more on this show. Please support what I'm doing. You can go to grahamelwood.com. That's got my Patreon. Go to Rockfin. That's the blockchain cryptocurrency platform. Tour dates, all that stuff. Keep supporting what I'm doing so that, you know, we can have people like Adam on here telling us their story. So,
well, thank you, Graham, for sharing some of your time and your platform. You're killing it out there, man. Fuck YouTube, okay? We're all going to migrate off of there soon enough anyways. But, man, congratulations on 50,000 subscribers. And I can't thank you enough. And I hope that everyone out there who has a story to tell finds a way to get this out to everyone. I mean, we got to say enough is enough. This can't continue.
Look, I say this all the time, Adam, and this is to everybody watching. There's two classes in this country, not two parties. There is the ruling class, the 1%, that is creating situations like that Adam is in, and then there's all of us. And there is more of us than there are of them. And we need to get together and let the ruling class know that we outnumber them. We need to let them know that. They need to be afraid of us, because you can't shame them. You can't say, hey, this isn't right. They don't care. They are soulless assholes. So we need to let them know that there are more of us than there are of them. And that's the only way things are going to change, is just true nonviolent resistance. That's how it has to happen. So thanks for supporting what I'm doing. Everybody out there, like, subscribe, get the word out. so that we can show people the truth, because the mainstream media isn't really doing this, because the mainstream media gets advised by the Silicon Valley, which is creating this situation. All the tech companies, and they talk about how great Mark Zuckerberg is, and he goes on TV and says he doesn't want to pay taxes because he doesn't like Bernie or whatever. Well, fuck him. So yeah,
fuck all those guys. Honestly,
fuck them.
You know, I can't even look at them and see them as human anymore. And just like the term unhoused, all of us still do it. I'm so far left. Like, you know, all of us progressives, we got to stop falling into that trap of reporting Democrat, Republican. We need to stop using those words. We got to come up with a new term, you know, whether it's the elite, the 1%, or whatever, and just decide we're not going to say Democrat, Republican anymore. Yeah. They're all evil. They're all psychopaths, and they've got all our fucking money now. So enough is enough. Get your yellow vest on. Shave them.
Shave your knuckles for justice, brother. Thank you so much. Adam,
thank you.
Whether you know it or not, you're making Gotham great again. Thank you so much for taking your time, and thank you everybody out there watching. Like I said, share these videos and get involved in your community. Thank you so much for watching.